France-Afrique. To understand what France-Afrique is, imagine a shadowy network of people who collude, people who reach out to each other to do evil, to do bad, to exploit, but very powerful people.
Yeah.
Francophone Africa has had more than 100 attempted coups over the last 5 decades, 5-6 decades. Whether attempted or successful, it's actually France that was behind it. And the reason France was behind it was when they no longer liked a president, they would take him out.
This is a small extract from what DJ Bwakali said in the video, a fearless breakdown of how France's grip on Africa runs deeper than most people realize. His words expose uncomfortable truths about power, control, and the price of freedom that many are too afraid to confront. Let's watch the rest of the video.
I'm gonna take everybody through a journey that begins from the 1870s, 1860s, because we need to understand the concept and the context of why France has been in Africa so long and why France continues to exploit Africa in a very clever manner. To understand what France-Afrique is, imagine a shadowy network of people who collude, people who reach out to each other to do evil, to do bad, to exploit, but very powerful people.
Yeah.
Now, this is what France-Afrique was all about. It was both a symbiotic relationship and a parasitic relationship between France and Africa. It was symbiotic in the sense that these leaders were benefiting from France keeping them in power. France ensuring that they protect them. And France was benefiting from the resources of Africa. France was benefiting by continuing to control Africa. So that's the starting point. And you see, because we've not been able to deal with the France situation, no wonder even China now is exploiting us. No wonder these other global powers, including a country like Turkey, which is starting to do some good, yes, but there's also a measure of exploitation. So we have to solve the France puzzle. We have to get out of this France morass, this France mess, so that that can help us to also deal with the other areas that are really messing us up.
Yes.
Francophone Africa has had more than 100 attempted coups over the last 5 decades, 5-6 decades. Whether attempted or successful, it's actually France that was behind it. And the reason France was behind it was when they no longer liked a president, they would take him out. First president of Togo was an amazing guy called Sylvanus Olympio. Sylvanus Olympio was one of the brightest, most intellectual presidents, not just in Africa, but across the world. Now, unlike many of the other presidents, the founding presidents of many other African countries, he believed in sovereignty. He believed that Togo should not be a puppet of France or any other Western nation. So Sylvanus Olympio made it clear that he will do everything in his power to ensure that France does not control Togo. He made that crystal clear. And for 3 years, he was doing his best. And then he committed the cardinal sin, the kind of sin that to date, both the West and France and World Bank and IMF does not want Africa to do, which is why Africa hasn't yet committed what to them is a cardinal sin, but what to us, it's our passkey, it's our password to where we need to be. Sylvanus Olympio, what he did is this. He said that he was going to take Togo out of CFA. He was going to come up with an independent Togolese currency that is not pegged on the CFA, which is an extension of the French central bank, because the reserve is in the French central bank. So he said that, and he even said, because he understood that you cannot just walk away with your currency. You need a proper fiscal plan or your people will suffer. So Sylvanus Olympio was ready to have the Deutschmark, which at the time was a German currency, to actually back the new Togolese franc that he was envisioning. You see, that was very powerful because it meant that Togo, a tiny country in Western Africa, was going to walk away from the stranglehold, the fiscal, the monetary stranglehold of France. Because he understood that if you have your hand in my pocket, Lynn, you've got to follow me wherever I go. So he said Togo is not going to put up with that at all. Now, here's what happened. When Sylvanus Olympio did that, a few days later, he was dead.
Wow.
In his place, after some time, was the president who then ruled Togo for a long time. A guy called Eyadema Kasinbe. He went ahead to rule Togo for a very long time. And you see in that case, because Sylvanus Olympio rebelled against France, they took him out, colluding with the local people right there in Togo. And that is where Françafrique comes in. Because in this shadowy network, they realized, wait a minute, we have most presidents, but 2 or 3 are rebelling in the early 60s. What do we do about that? These are things that cannot be discussed at the UN. These are things that cannot be discussed in bilateral diplomatic sessions. So now this is why this shadowy network called Françafrique came in very handy. Because through that, they could make these decisions and say, we're not going to protect this one, so we'll take him out. What if France hadn't taken out Olympia? Number one, they would have had their own currency. This currency would have shown the other Francophone countries what is possible when you begin building your own fiscal sovereignty. And who is to say what that would have led to? Who is to say the domino effect that would have had? So you see, because something like that happened arguably a long time ago, unless we dig it up like I'm now doing, then it's easy for people to imagine that you people, why do you keep talking about France? Because that is something that has to be corrected. And actually today in this show, I'm actually calling for the international community to rise up and institute a proper commission of inquiry so that we can get to understand how indeed France was involved in the assassination of Olympio. Remember, for Sylvanus Olympio, there's that powerful thing that he wanted to do for his country, which was to have a Togolese currency. Actually, before I move away from him, let me actually share what Africa can learn. Therein lies the first key. Remember, there are 5 keys.
Yes.
The first key is Africa needs to have the Afro. What is the Afro? The Afro is Africa's version of the euro. Africa needs to have its own currency, Lynn. This business of 54 different currencies all over Africa, they make it easy for IMF, for World Bank, for USA, for Britain, and for these countries to just manipulate Africa. If Africa has its own currency that is backed by Africa's vast mineral resources, I kid you not, it will be the most powerful currency in the world. The dollar is actually a very weak currency that is masquerading as a strong currency because it is the de facto global currency. If there was the Afro, an African currency backed by Africa's mineral resources, we have vast amounts of gold, vast amounts of diamond. I kid you not, that would be the strongest currency in the world, and it would lift up Africa. It would lift up Africans. Because the corrupt ruling elite of Africa realized that if Africa has a singular currency, the Africans will be enriched, the Africans will benefit, and they will have no rooms to play shenanigans. You know, for example, how in Kenya, the moment one becomes a politician, a governor, or the president, you know, we all know that the quickest way to become rich in Africa, including Kenya, is to become a politician. We all know that. You see? Now, if there was the Afro currency, that will be much more difficult because we're talking about a centralized currency that has better checks and balances that you cannot just take and stash away. You know, you can't do that. Within 2 years of Mali getting independence, Modibo Keita also said, we're not gonna use the CFA. So he started the Malian franc. He actually started the Malian franc. But France did something different with him than what they did with Sylvanus Olympio. France said, okay, we will let you be. France began what is called the war of attrition. They did everything in their power diplomatically to ensure that Mali was starved of the support it needed globally as a young African country. And then behind the scenes, remember, picture a dark room full of mostly men with evil intentions, men from both France and Africa. But in this dark room, it is a French holding the remote control, pulling the strings that are controlling the puppets. Now, once you picture that, you'll begin to understand how they see Modibo Keita is beginning to awaken Mali. Modibo Keita has a Malian franc that is actually beginning to pick up, because for Sylvanus Olympio, it had not yet picked up. It was still an intention, then they took him out. For this one, they let it be, and then they began to starve Mali. They did what France is very notorious for doing. About 6-7 years into his presidency, there was a coup d'etat, and he was taken out. Now, 40 coup d'etats have been successful in Francophone Africa. More than 40 have been successful. The vast majority of those were successful because of the French backing. Of course, the recent ones like in Burkina Faso, in Niger, those ones were not backed by the French, and it's why they are very furious. But this one that took out Modibo Keita, it was actually backed by the French, and then they continued ensuring that Mali does not even get up. After they took him out, now they had a puppet in place, a puppet that they could use to just maintain the status quo. Then tragically, in 1984, Mali limped back to CFA because the Malian franc was completely starved. It wasn't working, so they realized that they have to limp back to CFA. So France's war of attrition had actually won. Our call to all the African presidents, our call to all the investors, our call to Aliko Dangote, if you're gonna watch this Aliko Dangote, Africa must start producing their own cars. As long as we continue driving German cars and Japanese cars, we keep exporting jobs to those countries. We keep exporting, jobs that are needed right here to those countries. We keep disempowering ourselves, so to speak. Samori Touré teaches us that made in Africa is what will conquer these people. Today's Africa must begin to produce our own things right here. We must produce our own cars right here. I challenge all the young people, engineers, and don't just say that you're a Pan-Africanist. Don't just say that ours is a different generation. If you're an engineer, ask yourself, what does it take to make a car anyway? I'm sure your mechanic, just like my mechanic, they understand every single inch of these cars. They understand how everything there moves. Literally, we have the brains, we have the knowledge. There's absolutely nothing stopping us from making our own cars. We now need a race right here in Africa to see which country will be the first to make their own car from A to Z, because once they do that, we are going to buy that car. France has messed us up all this time, as I'll continue showing, but the more we make our own things, the less we will need them. This is a goal lane. This is exactly where we're headed. When you are coming to work today, did you meet an ant? But there were thousands of ants, even right here, even here. They're so tiny, they're big ants, they're small ants. Now for the tiny ants, unless you're using a microscope all the time, you cannot even know it's there. That's how insignificant it is. Yes, and a small ant is important in the broader ecosystem because every living organism is important in the ecosystem. But in terms of your happiness or lack thereof, it is insignificant. You don't even know it's there. That's where France should be. France should become insignificant to Africa. Completely insignificant. But it will not become insignificant if we have to continue buying their cars. They have to become insignificant, and Samori Touré shows us that the more we uphold made in Africa in everything, literally everything. Samori Touré had a great grandson who then rose up. They thought they took him down, but they didn't, because he came back through his grandson. The grandson is a guy called Sekou Touré. He may not be a direct grandson, but they're from the same lineage. Now, Sekou Touré was one of the most consequential leaders. He was the first president of Guinea. And again, we're going to learn from the Guinea experience and Sekou Touré's experience about what more we need to do. Sekou Touré said extremely powerful words. Sekou Touré said, "Nous préférons la liberté dans la pauvreté à la richesse dans l'esclavage." What it means, Lynn, is that we prefer liberty in poverty to riches in slavery. And you know why he said that? He said that because in 1958, Guinea became the first former French colony to become independent. And at that time, Charles de Gaulle, celebrated globally as a hero, but to Africa, there's another side of it. Charles de Gaulle and France said that they're going to have an election so that all their former colonies can vote on whether they'll be part of the French African community. Because what France wanted to do, and they've been super successful in that, is yes, we're going to tell you that you're independent, but they wanted these countries to formally be part of the French African community so that the party can continue. There can be a semblance of independence, but formally the party can continue.
Yes.
Now, Sekou Touré, that's why he said those words. He then voted no. Guinea was the only country to vote no. He said that we're not going to be part of that BS. We're just not going to be part of that. Now, France was furious. So furious that they totally began to sabotage Guinea. They left en masse, which is fine. As they left the country, they were doing petty things like pouring cement into toilets so that the drainage systems can be blocked, because they couldn't believe, who the hell do you think you are to actually tell us no? They couldn't believe that. That's why to date they do not like it when anybody does that. That's why they don't like it when Ibrahim Traoré says that, who the hell do you think you are?
Yes.
You know, he says it back to them.
Yes.
The same way Sekou Touré said it to them.
Yeah.
When he did that, the Western media began branding him as a dictator, as they usually do, as somebody who is messing up his people. Poverty began increasing in Guinea. Poverty began increasing and employment started soaring.
Yeah.
He then started flirting with the Soviets. But Sekou Touré in the early 60s showed Africa how we need to treat these people. The third key that he showed us is a fighting spirit. It's a fighting spirit where he was like, if I'll be the only one left standing, so be it.
History doesn't repeat itself. It only reveals those who refuse to learn. As Africa rises to reclaim her voice, the real question is, are we ready to break free from the chains we can no longer see? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. If this message moved you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more powerful stories like this. Watch this video next. I am sure you will love it.